Christopher, what's happening, man? How's the weather down there in Australia?
It's actually quite good. We had a few days of rain. It was talked up to as a cyclone at one point, but it wasn't all that bad where I was.
Gotcha.
But yeah, sunny days now.
You guys
All
don't
that's
really
behind
get
us.
attitudes down in Australia. I didn't really care. Um,
Well, I thought I'd play along to keep up the gimmick that you're concerned, about me and my countrymen.
I guess you guys got platypuses, but you don't have platitudes. I get it. I get it. Hey, everybody else over there in the comments section, hello. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We got a great show for you. Chris got a great show for you. I want to say hi to Jason, TG Sponsor, Harold Shepard, Jeff Johnson. Who do we got over there? Zippy the Chimp. That's a new one. Good to see you, Zippy the Chimp. Lori Matthews, good to see you. And everybody else that's tuning in, make sure you guys say hi. Yeah, we got a lot to cover. A lot of stuff is going on. A lot of movement on the European front. So, Chris, by the way, great show. I didn't get to watch it. I did look at some stats and things like that in the YouTube studio. And you had a great show the other night without me. Sorry I couldn't be here, but I'm sure you did great. Probably was better. Probably a better show without me.
Yeah, I wasn't going to rub it in, but that was the general feedback. This is just so much better. The Gary isn't here. Keep up more of this. But, yeah, I'd say it was just a smashing hit.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. Well, I know you got a video for us. Things are changing, sort of, both in the Middle East. We've been talking a lot about Israel and the situation there in Palestine. And then, of course, we continue to have the issues that we have there in Ukraine and Russia. No big changes there. A lot of talk. I don't see, but there is some rumblings of a ceasefire, a possible ceasefire that's going to be going forward. And I know you got some content to discuss that, and we'll get heavy into that tonight.
Yeah, so a little while ago there was a meeting with Ukraine and America. Where are we? In Saudi Arabia. So I'll just have a little bit of this. This isn't too important, but just the formalities of Zelenskyy and banned for what? For the march music?
No, God Offspring was about to get banned forever.
Oh, there we go. Beautiful. Yeah, no, that's. No, I told him, last episode, the rules have changed to how to get your comments up now. So it's got to be all pro Chris comments. Pro Gary comments will sort of get filtered down. It's the new rules now. It's a hostile takeover. Yeah.
Ted, good to see you, buddy.
Jason, where are we? Not hiding from everyone. Actually, I just bought a new ring light. So I'm mucking around with that. Normally I have the two lights or the window open, but only on the days that we're allowed to see into the yard, of course. But yeah, my setup might be a little bit different because I'm just got this thing delivered. Yesterday, I'm mucking around with different lightings.
They've proven that ring lights have caused a 120% decrease in testosterone. That's what I've heard.
I haven't heard about it. I'm a little bit suspicious of that statistic, but let's see how we go. Let's see if I can still hold on to this testosterone as the weeks go by using this ring camera. I think I can. There's plenty to go around. So I think we'll be all right. But anyway, out of this talk, there was some talk of a 30-day ceasefire with no real conditions by the look of it. And I guess then they've sort of said the ball's now in Russia's court. A lot of people sort of mentioned that the ceasefire really only would sort of benefit Ukraine, just as temporary 30-day ceasefire, because, a while back Ukraine invaded into Kursk, into Russia. They've been there for a while. It's quite sort of embarrassing for Russia, actually. But they're, Russia's really stepped up its efforts in the last few weeks to kick them out of there. So the ceasefire would be sort of a saving grace for them. It's been kind of a common thing with Minsk 1 and Minsk 2. These were ceasefire agreements in the past where Ukraine was really on the back foot, and the ceasefire was sort of a way for them to regroup and to rearm and things like this. So I think Putin's a little bit skeptical of that. But basically it's going to look like Ukraine and America, they're happy for this deal, but maybe Russia's not. So maybe the impediment is Russia might be the narrative. But I'll play what Putin had to say about it. This was a couple of hours ago. He had an interview, a press conference with Lukashenko from Belarus. Excuse me. He basically, well, some people have reported him agreeing to the deal. Some people have reported him not agreeing to the deal. I guess it's sort of more like a maybe, but closer to no. Basically, he said, like, we agree with it in principle, but, you know, we'll have to talk to Trump about the details or something. So I might just play this through and sort of read, you know, in case we've got any podcast listeners who don't want to have to read or can't see.
Yeah, we got at least a couple. I think Wyatt said he was headed to the range, so he'd be listening to audio only. So we'll definitely.
This one's.
We got you covered, Wyatt. You'll have to deal with it, a obnoxious Australian accent. But go ahead, Chris.
Well, it might be a little bit easier to understand slightly than the Russian, pure Russian, but we'll see how we go. All right, so this is, it was about 5 hours ago this was. As for Ukraine's readiness to ceasefire, I will say now, of course, how I assess it. But first of all, I'd like to start with words of gratitude to the President of the United States, President Trump, for his attention to Ukraine's settlement. We all have our own current affairs, but many leaders of states and the President of the People's Republic of China, such as the Prime Minister of India, the President of Brazil, and the South African Republic, deal with this issue and devote a lot of time to it. We are grateful to them for this because this activity is aimed at achieving the noble mission of ceasing hostilities and human losses. Secondly, we agree with the proposal to cease hostilities, but we assume that this ceasefire should lead to a long-term peace and eliminate the initial causes of this crisis. Now, about Ukraine's readiness to cease hostilities. You know, the meeting between the US and Ukraine and Saudi Arabia may look like a decision by the Ukrainian side under US pressure. In fact, I'm absolutely convinced that the Ukrainian side should have asked the Americans to do so in the most persuasive way, based on the situation that is now unfolding on the ground, as has just been said. I guess he's saying it's more beneficial to Ukraine, but how is it unfolding? I'm sure many of you noticed that yesterday I was in the Kursk region and listened to the reports of the head of the General Staff, the commander of the Northern Group, and his deputy about the situation in the Kursk region, primarily in the border zone. What is going on there? The situation there is completely under our control, and the group that has invaded our territory is in isolation. This is complete isolation and complete fire control. The Ukrainian troops' control within this zone of invasion has been lost. Just a week or two ago, Ukrainian servicemen tried to leave there in large groups. This is no longer possible. They are trying to leave there in small groups of 2 or 3 people because everything is under our complete fire control. The equipment is completely abandoned. It is impossible to take it out. It will remain there. And if there is a physical blockade in the coming days, no one will be able to... There will only be 2 ways, to surrender or die. And in these conditions, it seems to me, it would be very good for the Ukrainian side to reach a truce for at least 30 days. And we are for it, but there are some nuances. What do they mean? First, what are we going to do with this very invasion? Sorry. I've got it on 1.75 speed, so I can't catch all of them. What are we going to do with this area of invasion in the Kursk region?
Well, why don't you summarize for us, Chris?
I'll just try and go word for word for the man. I think he's all right. If we stop the hostilities for 30 days, what does it mean? That everyone who was there will come out without a fight? Should we let them out after they have committed a lot of crimes against civilians? Or will the Ukrainian leadership give them an order to lay down their arms and just surrender? How will it be? It is not clear. And how will other issues be resolved on all contact lines? And this is almost 2,000 kilometres. And there, as you know, Russian troops are advancing practically on all areas of combat contact. And there, too, conditions are being created for us to block quite large units. So how will these 30 days be used? In order for this forced mobilisation to continue in Ukraine? In order for weapons to be delivered there? In order for these units mobilised again to undergo training, and nothing of the sort will be done, then the question arises, how will the issues of control and verification be resolved? How can we and how will we be guaranteed that nothing of this sort will happen? How will control be organised? I hope that everyone understands that this is all a serious issue. Sorry. Well, a serious issue at the level of common sense. So, who will issue orders to cease hostilities, and what is the price of these orders? Can you imagine? Almost 2,000 kilometres. Who will determine where and who violated the possible ceasefire agreement? For 2,000 kilometres. And then, who will fall back on whom? Violations of this agreement. These are all issues that require a thorough investigation from both sides. Therefore, the idea itself is correct, and we certainly support it, but there are issues that we must discuss, and I think that we need to talk to our American colleagues and partners about this. Maybe we should call President Trump and discuss this with him, but the very idea of ending this conflict with peaceful means is supported by us. So that was sort of the main part of his sort of response. People have interpreted that different ways. Saw some people saying he agreed to the ceasefire, some people saying he didn't agree to the ceasefire. Really, it's like he's saying in theory we're for it, but maybe not this exact setup, so we'll have to iron out some details or something. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes, because it's not... Yeah, he's making out that it's more beneficial to Ukraine for a 30-day ceasefire. It's interesting because all this time Trump's been pretty hard on Zelenskyy, and I've been all for that, trying to push him for a ceasefire, and if he doesn't want a ceasefire, it's because he wants the war to drag on forever. But I think during this whole time, I don't think we've heard from Russia that they actually do want a ceasefire. Maybe it's sort of been implied or something, but I don't think we've had anything definitive from them.
I mean, not once have we seen Russia try to negotiate from a disadvantage, right? I mean, basically saying that you want a ceasefire is an admission of weakness, either directly or indirectly. So,
yeah, I
mean, the reality is that Russia could have went through, regardless of what anyone says. Russia is winning this war. They've essentially won this war. They will continue to win this war. There is no stopping Russia short of putting short of really starting World War III, putting European and or U.S. troops on the border. So the idea is either we just continue to prolong this war and let the devastation of Ukraine continue, or somebody comes to their senses and becomes, somewhat of an adult and says, hey, let's go ahead and end this conflict. The idea that everybody just so outraged, like, oh, we can't let Russia do this. Like, again, I keep asking it, what cost and why? Like, why can't we let Russia do this? What are you going to do to stop Russia? I just don't understand it. I don't understand. Oh, I do. I mean, I think this is completely, I think there's a lot of U.S. companies, a lot of U.S. shareholders and a lot of politicians making a lot of money off this war. And that's really the intent of this, which has been the intent of U.S. foreign policy for the last 20 years, right? So it's we've been doing either regime changes or just flat out invasions since 9/11. And it's just insane to see what's going on and to see Europe now getting onto it. Look, Europe is in the same boat as America. There's plenty of European weapons manufacturers over there too that want in on this as well, and that's part of it. But the fact is Russia is outproducing weapons, ammunition and artillery like 3-1 compared to the rest of the world, the rest of Europe and the United States. So they have more logistics, they have more capabilities, they have more people. This was never a war that Ukraine could ever really win. And I think this was just an opportunity to, somewhat diminish Russia logistically, but I think it has caused more harm to the U.S. economy and to the U.S. in general than it has whatever we thought we were going to do to Russia.
Yeah. I generally agree. This whole thing's just a big mess and shouldn't have been dragged on for so long. And Ukraine, never had a chance to win. But it's good to see Trump trying to sort of stop it. And just the response to Trump trying to stop it has been kind of quite telling. Just all the people that are upset at the thought of the war ending and Russia taking some concessions. Because I think Zelenskyy, even after his meeting with sort of some US officials, I forget exactly who it was, I think maybe it was Rubio and Waltz, I'm not 100% sure, he still sort of said that he won't be giving up any territory. Oh, and because I've got a bit of Trump as well, he sort of spoke about that. I might load that up, get that ready to load up next. Trump was speaking with Mark Rutte from NATO. And what was he saying there? Bear with me.
Well, and here's the thing, like, what is on the what is it that they expect Russia? What do they think Russia needs right now? Like, they don't need anything. Putin will continue this war for another 10 years if he wanted to. He's not asking for anything. He doesn't have to give up anything. Like, yeah, sure, he wants the U.S. to stop sending weapons and Europe to stop sending weapons and things like that are going to prolong this war, but it's never going to win it. Again, it's just all it's going to do is continue out. Like, Russia has all the cards here. And as far as Ukraine goes, Russia and the United States are in complete control of the situation. Like, we can either stop giving him funds, we can stop giving him weapons. Yeah, Europe might step up and give some weapons, but they're not going to give the same level of weapons that we've been giving. But, you know, I just don't. It's absolutely the most pointless war that I've ever seen, and it's been the absolute most pointless thing for the United States to get involved in. I've seen in a long time. But, you know, we have so many people in the political class that they've never seen a war that they can't resist, and that's exactly what this is. Like, it's just crazy to me.
Yeah, and I think coming up in this video, where are we? He sort of mentions that when the Americans had talks with Ukrainians about the ceasefire deal, I think he mentions that they talked about what territories they can have and what territories they'll have to lose. Yet still Zelenskyy, at least publicly, and maybe people might argue he has to do this publicly, but he's still saying he won't accept any territorial loss, which will just mean there's absolutely no deal that would be happening. Because it's more of a question of how much they're going to give up as opposed to whether or not.
Won't accept any territorial loss?
Zelenskyy.
Yeah.
That's been his line all the way through. Like, we won't accept any loss of territory, or, you know, we won't recognise any Russian territory that they've got from this. And the media will back him up by saying he shouldn't, and that's a Russian win anyway. But I mean, if the war is going to end, it's going to be ending with somewhat of a Russian win. So it's either a Russian win or the war never ends, basically. Yeah. But I'll put on a bit of Trump here with Rutte. He's asked about the ceasefire.
Anybody would have a question?
Mr. President, on Russia.
Sorry. Steve Witkoff's trip to Moscow, you spoke about it. What sort of agreement do you hope he comes away from that with? Well, we'd like to see a ceasefire from Russia. And we have, not been working in the dark. We've been discussing with Ukraine land and pieces of land that would be kept and lost, and all of the other elements of a final agreement. There's a power plant involved, a very big power plant involved. Who's going to get the power plant, and who's going to get this and that? And so, it's not an easy process. But phase one is the ceasefire. A lot of the individual subjects have been discussed, though. We've been discussing concepts of land because you don't want to waste time with a ceasefire if it's not going to mean anything. So we're saying, look, this is what you can get, this is what you can't get. They discussed NATO and being in NATO, and everybody knows what the answer to that is. They've known that answer for 40 years, in all fairness. So a lot of the details of a final agreement have actually been discussed. Now we're going to see whether or not Russia's there, and if they're not, it'll be a very disappointing moment for the world. Yeah.
Vladimir Putin just said he is open to a ceasefire, but he does still have some concerns. He suggested that you two should speak directly. Do you have plans to speak to him soon? If so, when are you confident you can get this across the finish?
Sure. He did say that today. It was a very promising statement because other people are saying different things, and you don't know if they have anything to really, if they have any meaning, or I don't know. I think some of them were making statements. I don't think they have anything to do with it. No, he put out a very promising statement, but it wasn't complete. And yeah, I'd love to meet with him or talk to him. but we have to get it over with fast. You know, every day people are being killed. It's not like, as we sit here, 2 people will be killed. Think of it. 2 people are going to be killed during this little period of time. Thousands of people a week are dying. So we really don't have very much time. We have to make this fast. It shouldn't be very complicated. We have a great team, really great team. Yeah, please. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, some of our allies have said that they're worried that they could be the next to be attacked by Russia. You've spoken directly with the Russian president.
Yeah.
Do you think those fears are justified?
No, I don't. I think when this gets done, it's done. They're going to all want to go home and rest. I don't see it happening. Nope, I don't see that happening. And we'll make sure it doesn't happen. Not going to happen, but we'll make sure it doesn't happen. Yeah, go ahead.
You're muted, Chris. You sound better that way, but you are muted.
I'm back. All right, don't worry. Don't get too used to me not speaking, because I'll be here eventually, talking away.
Hey, I do want to talk a little bit about too, and I was just pulling this up. Look, you know, the fact of the matter is China continues to invest in Russia, and they're working more and more hand in hand, which is a real problem. And I love on these Google results that the top one, which is one of the older articles on this, by the way, it says Russia's fiscal dependence in China grows. Again, always putting Russia at a weak point. Some of these other fact check things, again, when you start seeing the propaganda that's being put upon the American people, what we see and how we're viewing this entire conflict in Russia in general, once you see it, there's no way to unsee it. You know, Russia turns to China to develop its Far East. Is Russia really becoming China's vassal? All of these things, when in reality, what's happening is we have billions of dollars of China being invested in Russia. And this, I really like this particular, no, it's not this one. One I saw down here. A decade review of Russia-China economic relations. So it says right here, the Russia-China partnership has grown steadily in the past decade, driven by Moscow's widening rift with the European Union. So first of all, Russia has a lot more in common with the European Union and the United States. Never mind the fact that, you know, also geographically, right? And of course, they're right up against China too. But the fact is, Russia, for all intents and purposes, is a Western society. And we have a lot more in common. But yet, because of the way the European Union and NATO and the United States have treated Russia, again, we've been pushing Russia further and further into you know, these different partnerships with places like China, Iran, our enemies. When, you know, Russia just not too long ago was considered the second, you know, world power on the planet next to the United States. And when it comes to nuclear weapons, they're still the first. So we've continued down this road where we got stuck in this Cold War thing where we had an entire system built upon the fact that Russia was the enemy no matter what, and people couldn't pull their heads out of their ass in regarding Russia, when there was so many times, I feel like, you know, looking back through this over the years and just studying this over the last couple months, digging into the weeds of this, like there's been so many times when I think we could have made Russia a real strategic partner and spent more time investing, because I'd much rather have, if we're going to have companies investing in the United States, I'd rather have Russian companies investing in the United States and American companies investing in Russia versus China. First of all, we can have some autonomy if we are a U.S. company invested in Russia. I think Russia is going to leave them alone to some extent, or they know they'll pull out. But we know that all these companies that are depending on, you know, manufacturing in China, number one, we're using slave labor. We are doing more polluting than we could anywhere else. And on top of that, if you're doing business in China, China owns you. China owns your products. China owns all of your patents. They're taking all of that. So, you know, again, there's so many areas of possible alignment with Russia that we've had the opportunity to push forward and create a much better diplomatic and friendly relationship, as opposed to this adversarial relationship that the United States specifically by, with, and through NATO have continued to antagonize and provoke Russia. And it's absolutely pointless. But the military-industrial complex in the neocons, but now it was the neocons, but now we have the entire Democratic Party on board as well, trying to create Russia into a boogeyman that doesn't actually exist, so that we can continue to push for weapons production, pushing weapons over to, and the whole thing with Ukraine, not only are they getting money through these weapons production, the military industrial complex and all those things, but on top of that, they're sending all of this money. It's just a big boondoggle where they're, laundering money to other things that they want in their own pet projects and their own pocketbooks as well. So to me, this has been a lesson and a lost opportunity to make a former enemy at least some sort of ally, or reduce the adversarial relationship that we had with them. And I think the United States has blown that opportunity. As well as
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've definitely just pushed Russia into China's arms, as you're saying, just through this policy that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Russia really wasn't a threat to America. They were a rising power that could have been dealt with any number of ways, not as hostile as they have. They've sort of made things quite difficult to get along with Russia, and Russia and China are so close now. It'll be hard to kind of undo that. And I kind of had a good example here of just sort of the anti-Russian mentality that's a bit ridiculous. Some people might have seen this clip. Where are we? I think this guy says something about, I remember when Russia was the bad guys. I remember that. I think he even says something about, we allied against bad guys in World War II. I think it's in this clip, which is, of course, funny because America allied with Stalin in World War II, the Soviets. But now we can't. Now you can't.
No.
What's going on? Sorry, bear with me. Is that not playing? Oh.
Just heard you.
Sorry, my bad.
The person who's watching, who just heard you say Donald Trump is not standing up for Ukraine. What do you say to the person who says, well, I don't care about Ukraine. I want Donald Trump to stand up for America. What do you say to them?
I don't know where you got that. I mean, I don't have time for it.
Yes, but we hear it. We hear it.
Here's the thing. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in a place where you thought the Russians were the good guys? What part of America did you grow up in where they taught you the Russians were the good guys and our allies were the bad guys? That's the flip here that we need to continue to remind people. The Russians are the bad guys. They're raping women. They're killing children. They're bombing cities. The Ukrainians are the noble good guys. In some ways, they're more American than we are over the last couple of years. And we must stand with them in the same way we stood with the allies in World War II and since this country was founded. This is not just about Ukraine. This is about the core and the integrity of American values. And that's what he's also betraying. Not just Ukraine. He's betraying America.
Yeah, unlike back in the day when America used to stand with their allies, like in World War II.
Like when
Times
Russia was our ally? The absolute fact that we would have lost World War II without Russia. How about that? And we weren't friends then, but we had a pragmatic relationship, and that's what we're talking about, because at one time we used to have world leaders that actually gave a shit about peace and actually cared about human lives and human suffering, and we had world leaders that against their own personal interests and things like that would actually advocate for peace with people that we didn't even necessarily like the Russians. We were anti-communist during World War II, just like we were anti-communists after World War II. But the fact is like, hey, you know what? Let's set our differences aside. Let's win this war. Let's build a relationship. We were obviously sharing intelligence with one another. We were obviously sharing, battlefields with one another and bleeding together. And then, afterwards, we decided that we're enemies, and we were. Look, the USSR, Stalin, look, he committed major atrocities. All of that is true. But the fact is now we're at a place where you can't compare USSR to what Russia is today, and we've still determined that, guess what? All of the systems, the bulwark that we have in place against the USSR, we can't tear down because there's too many people relying on it from a financial standpoint, even though USSR doesn't exist anymore. Now what we got to do is we got to redirect and try to convince everybody that Russia is still the USSR, and not only that, is a greater threat than the USSR, and by the way, is going to actually return to the USSR. It's just, it's the argument for children. And if you believe that shit, you're dumb as F. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, you are so ripe for, and so, susceptible to propaganda that you're just a moron and you don't understand what's going on. The United States is not benefiting from Ukraine. And as a matter of fact, again, it can't be said enough. Like, we're on the cusp of starting World War III, and that's what these idiots are trying to do. I don't know what else to say. It's so obvious and so dumb to me that it's crazy that we still have to have these conversations.
Yeah, it doesn't make really any sense for America to keep supporting Ukraine, because just taken at that one issue, it really shouldn't affect America at all. That's why they have to convince people, and you hear it from all the experts on all the channels, that Putin, that's his plan. He has said he's going to recreate the USSR, and that's his plan. First it's Ukraine, then it's the Baltics, then it's the NATO countries. You hear this repeated all the time. And yeah, it's basically, we've mentioned before, it's a few of his quotes that are taken out of context about the fall of the Soviet Union, but he has said multiple times it makes no sense to recreate that. He has no real interest in recreating that. He sort of said Russia has more than enough land as it is. And even with Ukraine, this Donetsk and Lugansk, they were pleading for Russia to take them 10 years ago, but Russia was not interested. They were trying quite hard to support the Minsk agreements, and they kept saying, look, supporting the Minsk agreements is the only way to save the sovereignty of these Ukrainian territories. Because if you don't stick to this deal, eventually they were sort of hinting like they'd be swallowed up by us. If you don't follow the Minsk agreements, which gave, they were supposed to give more autonomy to these regions and put something in their constitution to that effect. And Russia basically said, if you don't at least give them that, you're going to lose them completely.
And JJ, kind of going off of what you said, we talked about this, I think, last week. That's the crazy thing, is like, we have like legitimate enemies like China. Here they are just outright threatening not only a economic war and a trade war, but outright war as well. This is what they're tweeting directly to us without really a response to the U.S. from the U.S. And yet the Democrats don't seem to have a problem with that whatsoever. And then we have places like Iran that literally, if they had a nuclear bomb, they would have killed us the moment they could. Look, the Russia's sitting over there with more nukes than we have, more nuclear capabilities, possibly better technology. I don't know how much of that is true as far as hypersonic missiles and things like that. But, they have the capabilities of destroying us, and they had it for the last 60 years. And, of course, we have this mad, thing going on, mutually assured destruction. But we at least know that we can trust Russia with power, because they've had it for a really long time. The moment that Iran would have any sort of nuclear capabilities, number one, they would do a nuclear strike immediately on Israel, most likely, as well as the United States, if they have that capability as well. And then, then we even look at what we have with North Korea going on. Like, say what you want about North Korea and our relationship with North Korea, the most peace that we'd ever had with North Korea was during Trump's last term, when he was calling him Rocket Man. And next thing you know, we have the United States president crossing over the DMZ, shaking the hand of Kim Jong-un. Like, that has never been seen before. So, and then we had all the talking heads on the left going crazy about this. Oh, you want to freaking be friends with, dictators, and, Trump is a fascist and all this thing. When again, we're just constantly being gaslit, when we saw the most fascistic behavior ever come from the Biden administration, when it comes to censorship, when it comes to prosecuting political adversaries. Like, we've never seen the level of third world country banana republic tactics that we've never had it in America like that. We've never had a more dictatorship, totalitarian government taking place than we had during the Biden administration, and what the government was doing to the citizens, doing to free speech, to gun rights, you name it. We were under attack, and we were getting their own ideology shoved down our throats, just like you would see in something from 1984 or the USSR or North Korea, whatever you want to say. As bad as America ever was under the Biden administration. It was under Democrats, and they continue to, what the hell am I looking at down here, Chris? I feel like I have Zelenskyy waiting in the wings to talk here.
Yeah, I got him on. He's in the stream room. I got him as a guest. He's ready to explain his case to the Counter Media podcast audience.
So
he's going to beg for money from everyone in the chat.
Just put a pin in this. Like, we have real threats, and the entire media, politicians and the left especially, seem to want to say, no. China's not the real threat. China's our friend. And I really do believe that the Democrat Party is completely in the pockets of China. I do. Like, their actions can only be explained by that. I think that is Occam's razor of explaining everything that they do. They're trying to sell this country down the pike, and they are completely beholden to China. And I think ideologically they align with them. And I think for some reason, would rather have Chinese control in the United States. I really do.
But are you ready for this man to speak to you for a little bit? It's only a minute or two. So this is a response to
I didn't realize he was a guest. That was a great job getting him on.
Yeah. I think he'll be keen to come on every week, actually. Might be a regular. All right, so Zelenskyy, why don't you explain to us, talk about Putin and the ceasefire talks, will you? Oh, hang on.
Почули з Росії.
Suppose I got to read this too, do I?
Тим більше, що зараз ми всі почули.
Now we've heard from Russia the very predictable, very manipulative words of Putin
Дуже маніпулятивні слова Путіна у відповідь на ідею.
in response to the idea of ceasefire at the front.
Він фактично
In fact, he's preparing for a state refusal for now.
станом на зараз
Putin, of course, is afraid to tell President Trump directly that he wants to continue this war.
Що хоче продовжувати цю війну.
He wants to kill Ukrainians. And so they put the idea of ceasefire in Moscow with such preconditions that nothing will work out at all. Or so that it will not come out for as long as possible. Putin often does this. He does not say no directly, but he does so. So that practically everything is delayed and makes it impossible to make normal decisions. We believe that this is all now another Russian manipulation. There was an American proposition about unconditional ceasefire in the sky, at sea, and at the front. We in Ukraine accepted this proposal. From the American side, we have heard that there is a willingness to organize control and verification. And this is really secure. With American capabilities, with European capabilities. And in order to prepare answers to all questions about long-term security and real, reliable peace in the time of the ceasefire, and put the plan of the end of the war on the table. Yeah, so that's generally... I mean, there is something to that, I suppose. Putin sort of is saying no without saying no. You could look at it that way, I guess. But the other way of looking at it would be Putin's... It's like maybe, but we've got to flesh out the details. So, yeah, that's basically the updates on all that. Hopefully, yeah, Trump and Putin talk and they sort of get a bit more serious with details and stuff. But at the moment, yes, there has been a US-Ukraine proposal for a 30-day ceasefire. Russia's not thrilled about it, but open to talks, I suppose.
Hey, Chris Baird, a.k.a. Conservative Dad, just pointed this out. Apparently, we do have a United airliner, I believe it is.
Well, it doesn't look like we're flying out today now.
Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
With the FAA and all these airliners, man. Like, it's just been one thing after another trying to figure this out.
Good. That's quick.
Yeah, it's an American airliner that's on fire. Oh crap! Sorry, I need to stop sharing that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that one, but sounds like there's been a few things like that.
Yeah. So, anyways, we'll see what's going on with that, but it's just been one airline accident after another, and I don't know what's going on with that. And again, yeah, DEI didn't earn it. A bunch of pilots. That's what we're dealing with. I really do think that there's at least some of that, to probably 40 to 60% of this to blame because of that. We've gotten away from any sort of meritocracy and actually making sure that we have competent people in these positions that require competence. I don't know. Oh man, yeah.
I don't know. You Americans. Australia has none of that, I'm sure.
Well, you guys don't have airplanes, so.
So that's pretty much most of the Russia-Ukraine talks. Got a few other things with like an update to our previous show, talking about the hostage envoy Adam Boehler.
Yeah.
I think I was onto it. I think I was ahead of the curve on this one. Just bear with me if I can figure out how to bring the screen up.
Important. Yeah, I got another important thing too. Important thing.
Very important. All right.
Go ahead and screw yours.
There we go.
Not completely off topic, but fairly off topic. So go ahead and get yours in there.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, I covered last time this Adam Boehler, however you pronounce it. He was having talks with Hamas, and Israel didn't know about it, and when they found out, they were pissed. And Adam Boehler sort of defended what he did. He said, look, we do have American hostages there, so I'm working to get them out, as well as all the rest. But it seemed like there was almost a focus on getting the American ones out. In the story I showed last time, it showed Israel sources were worried that if he could negotiate to get the Americans, I think there's just the one living and maybe 4 dead, and if you can get them out, maybe America won't be as thrilled to support Israel. And so they leaked the story about these talks in order to sabotage them. And then they even said the leak was successful because after we leaked it, it's sort of the talks fell apart or something. It was sort of the end of the talks. But anyway, this Adam Boehler went on a bit of a media blitz explaining himself. We played a bunch of it last episode, but I think the most important part is in this little segment here, so I'll just play it.
Understand why Netanyahu, Dermer, others might be upset.
I do understand. I spoke with Ron, and I'm sympathetic. He has someone that he doesn't know well, making direct contact with Hamas. Maybe I would see them and say, look, they don't have horns growing out of their head. They're actually guys like us. They're pretty nice guys. So he doesn't know me, and there are big stakes. He lives in a country where if it sets certain precedents, then it will hurt or help a lot of other people. So I understand the consternation and the concern, and I wasn't upset. At the same time, we're the United States. We're not an agent of Israel. We have specific interests at play.
So there's two things there, and yeah, emus, yes, we'll never live that one down. The Great Emu War that we lost, apparently, anyway. So the two things there. So the first thing he said, I think he's been misinterpreted, because I'm pretty sure what he's saying is, I understand why Israel's worried. They're worried that I might talk to Hamas and then say, oh, well, actually, they're nice guys. But he's not actually saying they're nice guys.
Yeah.
So I'll just play that bit again, because people are saying, oh, he said Hamas is nice guys. He's got to go. That's not what he said.
Pathetic. He has someone that he doesn't know well, making direct contact with Hamas. Maybe I would see them and say, look, they don't have horns growing out of their head. They're actually guys like us. They're pretty nice guys. So he doesn't know me, and there are big stakes.
So he's saying he doesn't know me, but maybe he thinks I would meet them and say they're nice guys. So he's not actually saying they're nice guys, but a lot of people
Yeah, I think
took
if
it
you
that way.
interpret that with any sort of intellectual honesty, that's exactly what you would glean from that. But what he did, he definitely left himself open to some spin there, without a doubt.
Yeah, he wasn't super clear about it. But then I mentioned,
Precedents.
I even mentioned that bit in the last episode, and then this one too, where he says,
Then it will hurt or help
We
a lot of
are
other people. So
the United
I understand
States.
the consternation and the concern, and I wasn't upset. At the same time, we're the United States. We're not an agent of Israel. We have specific interests at play.
and it's sort of in the context of Israel sort of telling him not to do something, but he's like, look, we're American, I do what I want for America, we're not an agent of Israel. Well, that was a bit spicy, and fair enough in some of these, because apparently after all this, apparently he's sort of been taken off that case of the Hamas and the hostages there, and I'm pretty sure it sort of mentioned, this one reported it properly. The possibility he would meet Hamas officials and think they don't have horns, they're actually pretty nice guys. Still not super clear, but there was another clip where he sort of did say, I don't really care about this Ron Dermer's concerns, which was a little bit spicy.
Yeah.
Maybe didn't work out too well for him in the end. But it looks like, just a lot of insiders, both Republicans and Israelis, saying that his media tours were like a total disaster. I don't think they were too bad. I think he was justifying the case, but
Well, let's be real. First of all, he's not a very charismatic guy. I got to be honest with you. He's not somebody that I can listen to, and he doesn't seem very convincing. I think they need somebody with a little more energy in there if they're going to fight this fight. So, chances are, between some of the faux pas that he's pulling off there in the media, and then on top of that, kind of a low energy guy, I think they need to get somebody else in there. Somebody that's going to be able to stand up and make sure that, they need somebody else like Caroline Leavitt in there that's dealing with some of these Hamas negotiations, I think.
Yeah, I suppose, but he's not super charismatic or whatever. But generally this idea of like, I'm in there, we've got to get these American hostages out, and at the end of the day I work for America, not Israel. I thought maybe that's just my bias, but that's the kind of talk I kind of like. I think I mentioned on the previous episode that I'm worried, that America really isn't independent enough from Israel sometimes on some of this foreign policy stuff. So
the weird thing to me is that you have somebody that is, I'm assuming he's saying he's doing the direct negotiations with Hamas. Like, if you're going to have somebody doing direct negotiations with Hamas, those are not the people that you want in the media, right? You need somebody that's a spokesman for those talks. Like, don't put the guy that's talking to Hamas in front of Jake Tapper or anybody else. Like, they don't need to have media coverage at all. They need to be completely protected from that. And then you have the talking points of what you want put out there, and then you have somebody else that is an actual spokesman to go out there and articulate what you guys are trying to do, what's actually being said, and whatever else information that you want to, release. Because again, when you're talking about, I don't care if you're talking about wartime and peace negotiations or hostage negotiations, I don't want, if I'm a hostage anywhere, but especially in Palestine as, a ginger white guy American, the last thing I want is the guy that's supposedly doing the negotiations going in front of the media and just running his mouth and telling people he doesn't care with this person or that person or whatever else. Like, this is a bad look for the Trump administration in general, and I don't doubt that this is a bad look for America. This is not how things should be done.
Yeah, well, that's what's interesting, because I'm pretty sure even his talks were supposed to be secret. We weren't supposed to know about the talks. We weren't supposed to know about his name. And we only know about it because Israel, to try and stop him, leaked his name to the press. So there was heaps of reports about how, isn't this outrageous? America's talking to Hamas. Trump had to acknowledge it. The press secretary lady, she had to do it. And then I think the only reason he had to go on all these talk shows is because there was just already a media sort of blitz against him, so he was trying to do sort of damage control. But it's probably we should know about it. But I think the only reason we do know about it is because Israel put it out there, basically to say, look, America, don't get involved with this. We don't want you
This guy
negotiating without us.
Front lens of a camera. Like, that's just the fact. Like, I don't know why that was being done. Is your normal Jew bashing segment over? Are we ready to move on, or we got more to talk about?
Oh, I got a little bit more of this segment before we move on. But it made me feel bad now. But I did have this because we've got Rabbi Shmuley. He was complaining about it, because I did our show, and then after I finished, I watched this one. I even said, the Israelis, they won't like this guy, and then here we have a bit of whinging about it here. So I'll quickly show a bit of this, and then we'll wrap up this segment. All right.
To a second genocide, to a second Holocaust. Suddenly,
to be fair, I like this guy because he basically puts forward the Israeli case, but he's kind of an obnoxious person. And I think even a lot of Jewish people, a lot of Israeli people, they don't like him because they make that side look bad. So I'll just, full disclaimer, But at the same time, he is, sort of a somewhat influential, sort of pro-Israeli person. He gets on TV all the time.
Who is this guy?
Rabbi Shmuley. He's just, he's somehow close with RFK. They seem friendly. He's also controversial. His daughter has some kind of a sex shop, which is kind of funny. There was a debate with some sort of Muslim guy a while ago talking about, Israel, Gaza or whatever. And Shmuley said his, Israeli talking points or whatever. And then the Muslim guy comes back and goes, he's being slippery. He's being more slippery than the lubricants that he sells in his daughter's sex shop. So he's just kind of a funny character with a funny law. And he's not happy with Adam Bowler, however you pronounce his name. But he's probably happy now because he's gone.
Bowler comes along, goes behind the scenes, and by the way, second genocide, to a second Holocaust. Suddenly Bowler comes along, goes behind the scenes, and by the way, Pierce, may I say, he criticized my dear friend Ron Dermer, who was you probably know I was rabbi at Oxford University for 11 years. Ron Dermer was my student president. I'm one of the people who...
Ron Dermer, he's the guy that had some tense phone call with Adam Bowler to get him to stop the talks, but he obviously didn't. And I think he's the one that said, I don't really care about his concerns or whatever. But for the most part, he said he did. I showed all the clips. He's like, I understand his concerns, and yes, it totally makes sense, and I get it. But then there was one where he wasn't as diplomatic. He's like, yeah, look, I don't really care about his concerns. We're America. It was a bit of a slip-up, but anyway.
Who inspired him to move to Israel. He's now chief negotiator with for the hostages. He criticized Ron by name, which was very unfair. And then he said, Hamas aren't such bad people. They don't have horns. It's like saying, Hitler was nice to his dog. I've heard that too. When you have a genocidal organization whose actual charter says that we are dedicated, not just to killing Rabbi Shmuley and all the IDF soldiers and all the women they gang raped. I was in the killing fields of Gaza 10 days after the bodies were still there. The stench of death was still there. When he says that they don't have horns and that they're nice people, you give them a degree of legitimacy, which is shocking. Imagine if people in Britain during the Second World War, knowing the Blitz, and then they found out about the extermination camps and what was done even to British prisoners of war, suddenly you heard that the Nazis aren't such bad people. In fact, I met with them and Himmler, we had tea, etc. That would be very offensive. And then he said, America is not a client state of Israel. I mean, come on. Does Adam Bowler not realize that he, as a Jewish American, is someone who Hamas also says in their charter they're going to kill? Let me quote the charter verbatim. The time will come when trees will call out and say, come, Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him. That includes Adam Bowler, includes his wife, includes his children. So when you say that these people are human, I'm sorry, there's no genocidal organization which is human. When Adam says to me, hey, they were elected in 2000, there was an election. Adam, are you freaking kidding me?
Now, he means Aaron, so he's going back onto the debate or whatever. But yeah, it was just... thought that was funny that he was quite upset with Adam. And then, a day or so later, there were quite a few people that were upset with Adam Bowler, obviously. And now apparently he's gone. So just had to update on that because I did end the previous episode with you should watch this space. I imagine this could be a little bit hairy. And by the next show, it sounds like he's gone. And so that's basically the end of that segment.
Jew bashing segment's over. All right.
I don't think I wouldn't term it that way, but each to their own, I suppose.
I All right, so I thought this story was pretty interesting. So first of all, White House pulls the nomination of David Weldon as CDC director. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know who David Weldon was prior to that. Let me go ahead and share the screen what I got here so you guys can see what's going on. Didn't know who he was, so I started researching him. Hey, why is the Trump administration pulling the nomination for the CDC director? Well, David Weldon is a very controversial figure. And what is he controversial about? Well, he committed the grave sin of basically just like Robert F. Kennedy, calling for like third-party testing of vaccines, calling for people to test and try to figure out the actual efficacy and or the risk that goes along with the different vaccines, like the 70 vaccines that we're squeezing into our kids today. And also talking about, Weldon said there was legitimate questions about the potential links between vaccines and childhood neurodevelopment disorders such as autism. So that is the sin he has committed. And here we have the Democrats, and the whole time I'm talking about that, I didn't actually share my screen, but this is David Weldon up there. So anyways, you know, the sin that he's committed is questioning vaccines and saying, hey, you know what we need is the people that make these things shouldn't be the ones that determine the data that we get on said whatever product it is. We should have some sort of third party testing, which I think most of us would agree would make sense in a normal civilized society. But that's not good enough for the crazy Democrats, the Democrats that pretend that they're for the everyday person, and yet they don't want to hold big corporations like Pfizer, all the big pharma, CDC, and everybody else. They don't want to hold them to any sort of accountability to see if what they're telling us about these vaccines are true. We get the data saying how well a medicine does or does not work. We don't know if it's poison. We don't know how well it works or anything else. We take that data directly from the people that produce it, and that's it. And then whatever they give us, like, hey, and then we have some sort of committee at the CDC that looks at that data that they gave to them and says, you know what, not only is this a great product that we should be shoving into every human being in the United States, we're going to make it mandatory for our children while they're babies to get this crap put into them, like the Hep B virus vaccine that has, like, it's crazy the stuff that we're doing. And that's who they're actually beholden to compared to, like, actually standing up for the everyday person like they claim to be, which clearly they're not. So, and this goes for the Republicans too. There's many on the Republican side that are clearly in bed with big pharma and are being funded by big pharma, and God knows what else that they're being promised once they retire by big pharma and these companies. In this crazy relationship that we have with the CDC, NIH, and the pharmaceutical companies, this revolving door of you retiring from, you know, the CDC and now you're going to work for Pfizer or Moderna or whatever else, that is nuts. That should be illegal. All the money that the NIH is making off of different patents that they've come up with that are now being sold through, like, it's crazy. The fact that, you know, Fauci is a multimillionaire because of some of the work, while he was nothing more than a public servant, supposedly, with like over a $400,000 salary, but he's still making millions and millions of dollars through other deals that he's made through some of these, you know, big pharmaceutical companies. But that's what we're up against, folks. And whatever the Trump administration has been able to do, will continue to be able to do, it's not nearly enough, because it's just the tip of the iceberg of us taking our country back from some of these big corporations, without a doubt, from big tech, from big pharma, and the military industrial complex. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, the whole thing seems very corrupt. All those the pharmaceutical companies, yeah, with the money they give to politicians plus all the ads they pay for. I think I mentioned before when I went to a trip to America when I was like 12 or 13, I was kind of blown away by all the pharmaceutical ads. And then a few years later, I was thinking back, going, well, that probably has an influence on like what the media says, right? The media probably isn't going to bite the hand that feeds if they're the biggest advertisers. They're probably not going to tell you the truth about, you know, vaccine problems or whatever. And they'll probably smear anti-vaccine people on the news.
Well, part of the problem that I have with this, through the democracy and through our democratic process of, you know, actually electing Donald Trump, one of the things that we were promised is that we're going to get in there and clean up the CDC, the NIH. And now we have a guy that is going to be adversarial to the CDC, to Big Pharma. And he's already out. And what's going to happen is we're going to get somebody else in that's part of the swamp that Trump was trying to get rid of. So, like, that's the crazy part of this is the Republicans, neither the Republicans nor the Democrats are going to confirm anyone that is going to have any accountability or make any changes in the system that is just a rubber stamp on whatever, these pharmaceutical companies say are good for us. There's no risk. It's all great. Trust me. Forget about the crazy data and the insanely stupid, flawed studies that we have on said medicine. It's like, I don't get it, man. And I don't get why it's so hard for me to understand why the average Democrat has fallen in line with this idea that whatever Big Pharma says is what's best for us. Like, I get when you're talking about the Nancy Pelosi's and the Democratic establishment and the Democratic Party and the politicians, but what I don't get is the everyday, Democrat that is like, oh yeah, like, give me all the masks, give me 47 different booster shots. I don't care what the data says. I don't care about all these different vaccine injuries that we're seeing. I don't care that the fact that it's clear that the media is trying to hide some of these things. Like, what is happening to the ability to, just think objectively and critically for yourself within the Democrat Party? It's nuts to me. It's nuts to me.
Yeah, it's all pretty nuts. There's plenty to go around on both sides of politics, I think. It just might be more obvious and more extreme with the Democrats, maybe. The Republicans are sort of like Democrats light, in a way.
Well, no, I disagree with that, because that's the problem. Is like, we've had so much infighting. We continue to have infighting within the not only the Republican as constituents, but within the Republican Party itself. Like, there's clearly divergent thoughts on a lot of different things. Whereas on, like, there's divergent thoughts on like 80% of what the Republican Party even stands for. Like, I don't like to call myself a Republican. I don't even like to call myself a conservative. Like, libertarian constitutionalist. Like, that's, I guess, kind of what I consider myself. And I guess if I'm going to put a moniker on me, that's what it would be. But like, on the opposite side of that, the Democrats, like, yeah, there's the crazy fringe on the end that wants to just, do sex transitions on like everybody. But when we're talking about like the 90% of what the Democrats represent, like 90% of the people fall in line with that. There's this disagreements on the fringes, but there's nothing monolithic about the Republican Party. And that's because they have a little bit of, I don't know, they can think for themselves. And that's the problem that we've had going up against the Democratic Party for the last 20 years is Democratic parties. Number one, somebody creates the script and everybody in the Democratic Party gets on the script. You're never going to see, 22 different politicians reading from the same script like you'd see with the Democrats in many of the montages that they've had. Like, that's not a thing. And that's the difference.
Yeah, that's true. They're obviously a lot more uniform, and yeah, you wouldn't see all those identical videos from the Republicans. Case in point, I suppose, have you heard about this? I think it's died down a little bit, maybe, but there was a bit of a spat with Trump and Thomas Massie over the government shutdown, maybe. I guess it's time to pass another, what do they call it, continuing resolution or something to sort of kick the can down the road another few months.
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess Massie isn't going to vote for it, and Trump basically came out and said he should be primaried because he's not been a team player or whatever. I have to look into it more. I generally like Massie. I think I side with Massie on that one. He makes the point that the last couple of continuing resolutions, they've always been, look, just vote for it this time. We'll fight the fight about cutting spending next time. And then it comes to next time, and they keep kicking it down the road. And that's what I think Trump's doing now, trying to pass it without, what do they call it? I forget the word. A clean CR where they don't really get anything out of it.
Yeah.
And they'll fight next time or whatever. I saw some tweets from, I think, Chris Lasavita, is it? I think he's Trump's campaign manager? I guess he's still sticking around. Because he was tweeting about Massey, and he basically said, watch out, Massey. Because Massey sort of said something like, look, they always try and primary when I go off script, but my voters, they like me being on principle, so I always survive. And there's Chris Lasavita, I don't have the tweet saved, but he's like, oh yeah, you've never come up against me. Hold on, just wait. And then when Trump finally posted his Truth Social about, oh, we should primary Thomas Massey, Chris Lasavita was almost taking credit for it. It was like, oh yeah, the fight's on. We'll this is what you get for going against Trump. I'm not sure the latest updates with that, but I think it almost doesn't matter because the Democrats are opposing it anyway. So it almost doesn't matter what Massey was going to do. I don't think it's going to.
No, I think no. The word on the streets now is that basically Schumer and the Democrats are caving on this. They are going to pass it. It's probably going to pass. I do agree with the overall sentiment that, like, hey, we continue to pass these continuing resolutions without getting the cuts and the fiscal constraint that we want on this. Right now I'm just looking at, I know I'm not sharing this, but you guys go to Fox News right now. It says Democrat Senate leader caves to Republicans and government shutdown standoff. So, I think ultimately the CR is going to pass. CRs in general or not. I mean, to me, it's a dereliction of duty by all of our representative government. They should be going. Nobody's reading these bills. Nobody's actually passing a budget. That's the problem here. And it's basically just a short gap stop, a fill to basically keep the government open because they refuse to actually get in there and pass a budget. So I see both sides of it, and I see the pragmatic side that Trump's coming from on this. Like, we don't really have the time to do this. But I also see that, the Republicans on some of this side are basically trying to, like, hey, look, let's be principled about this. We said that we're going to start going through and actually creating a budget and reducing our deficit, and yet we never actually do. And that is a problem that I basically have with Trump to some extent as well.
Yeah, because you think now would be the time. He's doing the Doge cuts. He's all about cutting the budget and having a balanced budget and all this kind of stuff.
All right,
and you think this would be the perfect opportunity to do it.
Old dirty Shinobi, listen to me very carefully. You're welcome here. All right, we will gladly hear differing points of view. If you're going to be a douchebag and you're just going to talk shit in the comments, I'm just going to ban you now. Or you have an opportunity to make your case, like we tell everybody that comes on here, every troll, I'm going to give you one chance. You can come on here and you can articulate a compelling case of why your thoughts and why clearly you're a Democrat, why your side is better than the Republicans. I'm fine with that, but I'm not going to put up with nonsense. So you're welcome, but if you're going to be a douchebag, you're gone. Simple as that.
Yeah, you should have seen the trolls on the last episode. I got some trolls calling me like an Israeli shill or something like that. It was kind of baffling, actually.
That was just Jason and Jeff.
No, they'd call me a Hamas shill. This guy was calling me an Israel shill, like I was pro
really?
Israel. See, it took me a while to comprehend it as well. I'm like, wait, what are they saying? I'm a Mossad guy now? What? Well, because you weren't there, because they were, sort of talking Israel-related things, and you weren't there to, sort of back them up or whatever. So I was trying to go easy on Israel.
Look at me, I'm clearly Jewish, all right?
But yeah, I was trying to be fair and balanced, and some people in the chat weren't having it. Saying, Chris is Israeli, so he's biased.
I should convert just so I can trademark the Ginger Jew. Like, I would make so much money on merch.
Yeah, you should. And I'd help you out in that business. Like, I don't have a problem with any of that. I'd get in there to help you with sales or marketing or something.
And Jeff, I would have to spell it with a J, not a G.
What else was there? Oh, there was that. Was that college student guy? Oh, I haven't really checked all the details, but some guy they call him.
Narrowed it down to about 50 million.
What's his name?
College student. Yeah.
I thought everyone would just, that guy, because it's been in the news, because he's like...
You know that guy with hair? You know him?
The guy with hair that goes to college. I was somewhat specific. Okay, don't, why can't I find his name? But yeah, Trump, they've detained him. He's a student. Trump calls him a radical foreign pro-Hamas student on the campus of Columbia University.
I can't think of his name. I know you're talking about the guy he's trying to deport. Or is deported.
Yeah. So, of course, you guys probably love all this stuff or whatever. But no, I mean, I'm sort of like, no, because they're trying to say he's done like what illegal stuff has he done? I haven't seen any of it. It's just talking trash about Israel, maybe supporting the Palestinian resistance, some comments like this, maybe.
No. Well, here's the thing. Number one, he's on a visa. He's not an American citizen, and he is, number one, basically supporting Hamas. Okay, the last time I checked, they are a terrorist organization.
Yeah, but how is he supporting them exactly?
Well, that's a relevant question. We can pull that up. I have
because they've been a little vague about it. They just say he's pro-Hamas.
I agree, but I have seen some of the specific things. I just don't remember. It didn't stick in my mind. But there's
he could accuse him.
I was like, well, duh, yeah, you're going to get deported if you're doing that. I don't remember what they are. We can look them up. But like, yeah, you're going to get deported, bro. Like, forget about it. Like, I mean,
yeah, but this idea of him being,
according to Chris, Jews run this country. So if you think that, you're going to get deported. So, I mean, duh.
Well, wouldn't that just, not that I would say such a thing, wouldn't that just prove that, right? If you're like, hey, they rule the country and then the country kicks them out.
It would prove that, like, if you come into our country and start supporting any terrorist organization, whether they be anti-Semitic or not, like, we're probably going to get rid of you. And by the way, just so happens, like, literally every terrorist organization is anti-Semitic. So I just want you to know what type of people you're in bed with, Chris.
Yeah, well, who picks what the terrorist groups are? You know, maybe there's the overlap there.
I mean, you know, it is what it
is. I haven't looked into it enough, but generally I'm sort of like, is this, you know, because they're not actually breaking the law, but they're just not. Because I mean, isn't it legal? What if he trashed America? You know what I mean? What if he was like, America sucks, I hate this country? That's probably fine.
Well,
but if he's...
So there's a principled argument and then there's a legal argument about, you know, like the Bill of Rights and Constitution. So to me, I will say that the principled argument is that, hey, look, the Bill of Rights what we're talking about is inalienable rights that are granted to us by God, regardless if you're a U.S. citizen or not, that you have access to said rights. I think that's what it basically says. The legal standpoint is that, like, hey, no, that's not really what it's saying. That, you know, essentially, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you don't have access to said constitutional rights and or Bill of Rights. I personally disagree with that. I'm not a legal scholar, but I think that's what the intent was with our founders and basically what they were saying. So that's why I say, like, you know, I am a Second Amendment absolutist. I believe that if you're in this country, regardless if you're a citizen or not, that you should have access to firearms. I know a lot of people on here are going to disagree with me. To me, that's a principled standpoint from what I believe is to be a human right, that you should be able to defend yourself and that arms are the best way to be able to do that. I'm also thinking that drones should also be covered under the Second Amendment as well at this point. I think those should fall under small arms. And that's something that we need legislation to pass. And I think that's really important with the future of us being able to protect ourselves against a tyrannical government. So there's that portion of it. But again, legally speaking, I think there's a good argument to say he does not have access to the First Amendment. And if you're here under a visa, student visa, and you're supporting terrorists, and or you're just bad mouthing America, and or just causing a disturbance at a college, well, you're probably, if we, the United States, are better off of you not being here, then F you, you're gone. I don't care what it is. I do agree generally with that idea. You're a guest in our country. If you're disturbing other people, You're disturbing Americans that have paid for the ground that you stand on and the education that you're now receiving. Then F off, you're gone. I don't care. And I think that's fair.
Yeah, like I'm not going to get too outraged by what happens to immigrants. They're sort of here on, as a privilege.
Australia, you guys don't have rights, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, we have some somewhere. So I'm told. I don't know. We don't really have a constitution.
Muhammad Khalil.
We have
ranting here. Let's look up what Muhammad Khalil has actually done, so that we're not just going off completely half cocked here. I did see some news reports on it.
I saw things as mainly like he was leading the pro-Hamas protest, which could just be any kind of anti-Israel protest. He has said something bad about Western civilization or whatever, but I don't know. It doesn't sound too illegal to me.
Yeah, so, all right. Apparently, he's led some violent protests. So, Muhammad Khalil, violent protests. I need a producer over here. Jamie, look that up. Bring that up for me.
It just seems like there's a real focus on the anti-Israel statements. Like if he was just there trashing America, I think he would be fine. That's just my bias or whatever. But I think that's the third rail, perhaps, of American politics with the Israel stuff. They're probably harsher on you than any of the
Americans or Christians. He'd be fine. Matter of fact, he'd be even more of a protest over Muhammad. I don't know. So shockingly, I'm not coming up with a lot of quick information on this, even though.
Yeah, they haven't been very clear from what I've seen. They sort of just take it for granted that he's sort of like been part of the anti-Israel protest. Therefore, that's sort of pro-Hamas. He's got to go.
There we go.
There's just a side thing. The ex-president of the Philippines, he's been taken to the International Criminal Court. I think something to do with, remember a few years ago he was cracking down hardcore on drug smugglers or something, possibly encouraging people to shoot themselves or something.
You talking about the Filipino president?
Yeah. Duarte or whatever.
Yeah.
It was a while ago. Apparently he's just been arrested.
That was a weird segue. How do we get there?
The comment that's on the screen. I'm just reacting to the chat.
I'm looking at a video over here. I'm looking at news articles about Muhammad Khalil. Gotcha.
It's really not my problem. That he didn't see what everyone else could see.
Yeah.
I didn't have any stories on it. Just a little comment that that's happening. ICC. Unfortunately, Netanyahu and Gallant, they're still evading arrests from the ICC. They've, because apparently if they step on ICC signed up countries like Australia, our government's supposed to arrest them and ship them, Netanyahu and Gallant, to The Hague for war crimes tribunals. But America isn't a signatory, as you may know, and Trump will actually invite him to the White House, give him a nice reception. Operates a little different. I guess this for me. Someone tell this Aussie what APEC is, then he'll understand. I think I've talked about APEC a little bit too much on this channel.
We've talked about APEC. All right, so this is according to Grok. All right, and it's pulled 15 web pages, 7 posts. Grok is probably an acronym that ends up saying that Jews control everything. But Muhammad Khalil is facing deportation by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement due to his alleged involvement in activities that the Trump administration claims pose a threat to U.S. foreign policy interests. Specifically, the Department of Homeland Security and the Secretary of State have cited a provision of the Immigration Nationality Act, which allows for the deportation of non-citizens if their presence or actions are deemed by the Secretary of State to have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences. Khalil, a Palestinian green card holder and former Columbia University graduate student, was a prominent figure in 2024 pro-Palestinian protests in Columbia, where he acted as a negotiator for the Columbian University Apartheid Divest Group. The Trump administration, following executive orders aimed at curbing what is called anti-Semitic or pro-terrorist activities on college campuses, has framed his activism as a justification for revoking his permanent residency status. Goes on to say some other things. So, you know what? Get out of here. Go back to, you know what? Palestinian needs more fighters. You need to go die for your country. So go help them out. Don't sit here and whine about your shit in our country. How about that? They need help. All right. Those rockets aren't going to launch themselves. All right.
I mean, it's, you know, it's not something I'm outraged about, but yeah, generally I'm not I mean, just let him have his little chance in college campus.
We're going to box him up. We'll send him to Australia. You can lay out the freaking red carpet for him, put him up in a university, let him freaking do his thing over there in Australia. As far as the United States, F you, you're gone. You know, we need tunnel diggers. They got a lot of, they have logistic and manpower issues that they're suffering in Palestine right now. And it's not getting better, by the way. They're losing more and more every day. So I'd get over there if I was him and I really cared about the situation. I'd be over there fighting for his cause as opposed to whining about it in American universities. How about that?
Yeah, well, the same will go for all you sort of pro-Israel people. You know, I'm sure the IDF will take you. They'll probably take foreign
I don't care.
volunteers to fight that good fight.
I don't care what the IDF does or anything else. Again, I am pro-Israel. I'm pro-Jewish. I've already stated, like, I don't think that we should be spending the money that we spend in Israel. I don't think we should be spending the money that we're spending anywhere. We got to have we're almost 37. We're at $36.9 trillion in debt. We're losing on every front. We have terrible health care. We have terrible infrastructure. We have terrible, our jobs is not getting better. We have 15 million illegal immigrants. We can spend all that money getting out of this country. Like, there's a lot that we should be spending on here in the United States. Israel can solve their own problems. Ukraine can solve their own problems. Let's work on, good old fashioned America right here. And we got everybody down in the Carolinas that we should be taking care of right now, rebuilding their homes. We have people in the Palisades in California that we should be building their homes. People in Mali, we should be spending those billions of dollars. If we just spent a quarter of what we've already spent in Ukraine, those problems wouldn't be a problem. We wouldn't have anybody without homes in the Carolinas. We wouldn't have anybody without homes in Maui. All of that stuff would be fixed, but we're too worried about sending money to Lockheed Martin to fix our own American problems. These taxpayers that are actually contributing and have generations of people that have contributed to this country through work, blood, sweat, and tears, and losing people in wars, and yet we're sending our money to Ukraine. F you, Ukraine. F you, Israel, when it comes down to it. And everybody else. Like, let's fix American problems first. We don't have any money.
Yeah, that'd be my main point. I don't expect to win over the people here on the moral cause of the Palestinians or whatever, but surely we could come together and agree that, yeah, Israel, they can fight their fight, but they should sort of fight it on their own. They shouldn't be so reliant on America. You get some Israelis that say American aid is sort of a hindrance anyway. I'm not sure how true that is, but I mean, go for it. Like, you should cut it off and do it on your own, and I probably won't complain as much if it wasn't drawing in America.
I don't disagree with that on some extent, but like, what is the amount of foreign aid? Hold on. Amount of foreign aid because it's not just Israel. Like, we're sending.
Yeah, cut it all off. Cut it off to Palestine as well. They get a fair bit. And Egypt gets heaps, mainly to be friends with Israel.
I mean, look, so right now the top recipients of foreign aid fiscal year 2023, Ukraine is $16.6 billion. It's far more than that, by the way, folks. This is bullshit numbers. Israel, $3.3 billion, $1.8 billion to Ethiopia. Like, why are we sending billions of dollars to Ethiopia? Other major recipients, Jordan, Egypt, and Afghanistan. Hold on. That's one thing that I want to know. I want to know how much amount of foreign aid by U.S. to Afghanistan? That's a great question because it should be
Nothing.
less than zero. Should be less than zero. Since the withdrawal of troops from Kabul in the summer of 2021, the U.S. has spent almost $21 billion in foreign aid to Afghanistan. That means we are sending, since 2021, since they killed 13 of American soldiers at Abbey Gate, we've rewarded them by giving them $21 billion directly to the Taliban. I mean, how stupid can Americans be? How dumb, how set on self-destruction and suicide are we that we would send our enemies $21 billion? It makes zero sense. How does that make sense to anybody?
Yeah, I'm not even sure what exactly that would be. I mean, because the government's the Taliban, right? So they're getting the...
It's 100% to the Taliban. They are Afghanistan. Yeah. And again, we're not getting any money sent to, I mean, when's the last time we heard about money getting sent to the Carolinas or, what is it, West Palestine? Right there in Ohio, East Palestine. Maui, come on, and Trump, Trump should be all over that. Those are easy wins. Hey, you know what? That's what he should be doing right now. He should be coming hey guys, hey, we were scheduled to send another $20 billion to Ukraine. We're not. We're actually going to take that money. We're going to split it between East Palestine, the Carolinas, Maui, and the Palisades, and we're going to fix it all. We're going to take that $20 million. We're going to fix all our problems here in America. And you know what? After they decide they're going to negotiate for peace, we'll talk about giving them some more foreign aid. But right now, we're cutting that off. Easy win. There's not a person in the United States who wouldn't get behind Trump on that and be like, you know what? He's right. We should fix that first before we send any more money. And all we're doing is sending money to Ukraine so that they can kill people, kill one another. So all we're doing is funding murder and death. That's what we're doing with our tax dollars. We're literally turning our tax dollars into explosions. We're burning our money to fund murder and death on a problem that's not ours while we ignore our own people that don't even have homes.
I'm not exactly sure how the budget and the continuing resolution works, but wouldn't this be a good opportunity to do stuff like that? Just got this new budget, can't we chop out a lot of foreign stuff? And all the things we've been finding in Dodge, can't we chop this, chop that? You think wouldn't now be the right time for the budget to push for a lot of cuts?
So anytime they're doing a continuing resolution, Chris, is what they're saying is continuing resolutions shouldn't even take place. Continuing resolutions only happen when they haven't, when the House and Senate haven't gotten together and passed an actual budget. So they're like, hey, we haven't actually done our job. So what we need to do is hey, we're about to run out of money because we have to, the House specifically has to freaking, come up with the budget to make sure that what to disperse those funds, right? To allocate funds. Well, they haven't done it. So now they're about to run out of money. So now they have to come up with these resolutions that, just blanket billions of dollars so that they don't run out of money. That's what it is. It's just a stopgap, and it's stupid. We should never have a sort of continuing resolution.
Yes, I mean, is there any plans to actually do a budget anytime soon?
That's a great question. It's a great question. I don't know when the last time we actually passed a full budget. When was the last time Congress? There we go. Passed the budget. The Trump administration, the budget proposal was released on March 11, 2019. It looks like 2020. So somebody out there do some research and see if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at Wikipedia. Looks like we haven't actually passed a budget since Trump's last term. So on August 1st, 2019, the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2019 was passed by the House, The next day, August 2nd, my birthday, by the way. You guys write that down. I expect gifts every August 2nd. Send those my way. Was passed by the Senate and signed into law by President Trump. Yeah, so that's what it looks like.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is nuts. Again, a complete abdication of their responsibility. It's like the House's primary job is, to make sure that we're funded correctly in the past budgets. Whatever. I don't know. See, old dirty Shinobi. Isn't this much more fun than just trolling? So you get to talk with everybody in the chat. Become part of it. Like, again, we don't care what your views are. Just don't be a d-bag, and we're all cool. So, I mean, if you're a big enough d-bag, you might end up on the show like Chris. That's what happened to Chris.
But you got to work. You really got to work at it.
You gotta be the exceptional one.
You got to trash Israel at every opportunity. That's how you do it.
Yeah, that's another thing. I can't wait to see what we're going to see or what we're not going to see about the final Epstein files and the JFK files and all that other stuff. Man, I found, folks, if you haven't, I can't even put it in the comments because it won't allow me to put links. If you guys go to Tucker Carlson, his latest interview, it's not his latest, but I think it was one a couple days ago with Chris Cuomo, where they talk about the JFK Epstein files, Rogan, NATO. He specifically, and I was trying to pull up the clip, I didn't have the timestamp, when he's talking about Tucker says he has proof that Ukraine is selling the weapons that we've sent them on the black market. And he basically, what he says is he knows that is taking place. He's talked to people that are buying those weapons off the black market to get them off the streets, essentially, because they're basically, he's asserting that there are Javelin missiles and other surface-to-air missiles and other high-tech weaponry that is actually being sold to cartels in Mexico, and that's a problem. It's not only a problem that if Ukraine is selling our weapons, which I don't doubt. Matter of fact, I think it'd almost be unlikely that they weren't. Just knowing the level of corruption with the generals over there and different actors that we have over there, almost guaranteed they're selling this stuff on the black market. And of course, the left media is going crazy, saying Tucker's a liar and all this other stuff. And they're going to bury the story and try to prove it wrong because they're so in bed with Ukraine and this whole mess. Like, they can't allow that to be true, even if it is. But anyways, I would highly suggest to go watch that interview of course, Chris Cuomo is a normal douche that he is, but it's actually a really, really good interview where they cover a lot of different topics. And I think it's worth watching. So if you haven't seen that, definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, I think I saw a previous talk between those two. And it was interesting just because they used to be sort of real enemies or whatever. So even just them talking is kind of interesting in its own right. And I have heard stuff about the black market. I'm not sure whether it's true or not, but I wouldn't be surprised. Just knowing how kind of corrupt Ukraine is or whatever. But I did see something sort of related to, equipment to Ukraine and where it ends up. Got this one here. There's more about Australia. Australia, we're sending Bushmaster sort of armoured cars or whatever. And Russia keeps snapping them up. So Australia sends them these things and Russia gets them on the battlefield. Just expressing their gratitude to the Australian government. I guess some Russian is in curse. They're sort of just taking the piss a bit. I don't know how I feel about this one, So this is an Australian supplied equipment or whatever. I was trying to figure out how to work out this Australian technology.
Everything spelled wrong.
So the last review, they used to have some.
So they're doing a product review of an American Striker play this for a minute. I got to see this. This is actually pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
I think they're talking about last week. It was the American striker, but now it's the Bushmaster.
Все, от и до прошлый наш сюжет был из американского страйкера. В этот раз австралийский бушмастер.
Yeah, so it's our turn
Тоже
now.
интересно, тоже красиво. Давайте
It was the American
осмотрим
product review last
десантное
time.
отделение. Первое, что я вижу, это, судя по всему,
So if you can't read the translation, he's basically saying the Australian stuff's way better than the American stuff. I think he said that somewhere in there.
That's not what he's saying at all.
совсем понятно. Нет, зачем
This
сделаны
bullshit looks like it was built by
вот эти
kangaroos without
штуки?
thumb.
Эксперты, зрители, может быть, вы подскажете, может быть, это для того, чтобы отклонить какую-то волну.
So the Australian
Смотрим
technology is
дальше.
just too much for him
Здесь
to
у нас
comprehend.
боекомплект, ракеты, как раз-таки, которые заряжены автомобиля. Могу сказать, что здесь...
Anyway, so they basically give the Australian Bushmasters 10 out of 10.
That's not what they said at all.
Well, I'm reading between the lines, you know. They are at war. They have to be reserved. They can't compliment the enemy. But you can tell in his face he's impressed. You know what I mean? See, that's why I'm here. I'm here to, you know, pick up the things that other people would miss. Do the body language analysis,
You're an
facial
op,
expressions.
bro. Let's just be real. Look, we all know it. You're an op.
Yeah,
You're
well.
super glowy, as they say, and that's okay. Got to keep our enemies close, and our friends close and our enemies closer. So, having a a resident op, I think, is a lot of fun. Actually, we're opping the op.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
So that's what you think. You think
that-
you're opping the op, but the op is always opping you.
That's the truth of the matter right there, Chris. Is that he'd be impressed with electricity and running water.
No, I don't think so. I think they got plenty of that. Plenty of that in Russia. I think it's just more American cope. You're not happy with the high quality Australian equipment on display over there.
Well, what else we got, Chris? I think that was a pretty good show.
Yeah, I think that should do it.
That
I
was
have a quick mention. There was Tulsi Gabbard. She did have someone picked. I don't have his name, but you can look it up. Tulsi Gabbard's deputy director of national intelligence. She's been dropped because he said some spicy things as well. I won't say what country he was offending, but it wasn't America, and now he's gone. I forget his name, but
It's the same thing.
Yeah, top critic of Israel on Gaza, and he was not hard enough. Oh, I didn't bring it up, did I? Yeah, he's a critic on Israel. He's not a big enough Iran hawk. He said some similar things to me about Iran not being the hugest threat in the world. So now he's gone because you're not allowed to say that. That was about it. I don't want to go too heavy on that. We've already had enough anti-Israel stuff. Just a little drive-by shot at the end should do it.
Well, yeah. Second best show, guys. Oh my God. Offspring, you're about to freaking be so banned.
There's this one, the Steyr AEG. Is that not a good gun?
It's a
Jeff's
terrible
talking-
gun. Like the fact that you
No.
even have to ask that. It's like one of the worst retarded looking guns. The trigger on it's trash. The sights on it trash. Like
All I know is from playing Counter-Strike back in the day, they had that gun and it looked kind of cool, and I think the game made it kind of powerful. So,
freaking bullpup. Oh my gay. Yeah. No. Terrible gun. Well, folks, another great show. Thank you all for tuning in. We had fun. I gotta be honest with you, before this I was kind of in a little funk. I was not in the best headspace today, I think, overall. Our dog's been sick. And I'll be honest with you. So our dog, many of you guys know Aries. Man, he started having some serious seizures. He had 3 seizures in one day. It was crazy. And we literally I thought I was going to take him to the vet the next day to put him down. So far, it looks like he hasn't had any seizures since. So anyways, So for those of you out there that know Aries or don't know Aries, pray for Aries. We want to keep him around. He's been the best dog I've ever had by far. So hopefully he'll be good. But anyways, thank you guys. You guys cheered me up. Not you, Chris. You still depressed me. But everybody else cheered me up. And
tried.
I appreciate you guys, and hopefully we entertained you, informed you a little bit. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you.